own sheriff's department, aviation section of the sheriff's department.
Да, мы сейчас
We'll pre-fly the multi-engine plane. We're checking the oil and the fuel, checking the plane around, checking the fuselage. Check. Oh, you said.
Yeah, but we don't have the
You don't have it?
the blue one.
Bring it. And when you're checking, talk to him what you're checking.
Okay. So the first thing I did was I have a certain sequence that I follow in my head when I do it. You know, there's a checklist in the door here. And the way to do it is to open the plane and take this checklist.
Yeah.
And go by this checklist. Okay. Yeah. So it's, you know, the Beechcraft Duchess 76. And this is the way you do it every time. You follow the checklist. Now, when I do my pre-flight, the way I start it, I always start in the front, whether it's single engine or twin engine. I start there in the front, and the first thing I always check is the oil.
Yeah.
I open the access cover and I check the oil, so then I walk to the other side, check the oil on the other engine. Then the next thing I do, if it needs oil, you know, I'll add oil, and that's what Hugo and I were discussing. Then the next thing I'll do, you'll see over here where the pitot tube cover was, because I'm walking this way anyways to get the checklist, I'm walking by here, I take the pitot cover. There was the pitot cover was here. I take the pitot cover off, and I have a certain way that I wrap it, and I carry it with me. And also, I untied the first rope from the wing. So now I'm coming around, and I have the checklist, so I'm hanging the checklist, and I put the pitot tube cover inside the airplane on the seat. I put it right on the seat, so when I get in, I know, oh, okay, then I put it in the door pocket. Then I don't have to check, or I don't have to get out and know in my mind, is it on, is it off? So then I'm coming, the next thing, I'm going to untie the tail. And I kind of like to put the, you know, I like to put the ropes nice so that they don't catch on the propeller. Now, like I said, the first thing I'm doing is I'm just doing a whole kind of overview of the look of the plane.
So it's very important to check the vertical stabilizer.
I know, but I'm explaining the way that I do it is the first thing, you know.
Now the vertical stabilizer is very important because if something happens, you can get back to the base with no flaps. You can get back on the base with no ailerons. But you cannot get back with
no
rudder. With rudder, okay?
Yeah.
So it's very important. You can get back with no gear, no engine.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly, but you can get back.
But you can get back. But with vertical rudder, you lose control.
So like I said, it's continuing on just a general overview, and now I'm going to go and get the cup.
Fuel sump.
The fuel sump cup. They call it the GATS jar. That's just a brand name, but
You can open my door there.
oh, I do it from the other side.
No, you can't. You can't.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
Вот Люба добавляет немножко масла в наш самолет, а это сейчас будет проверять топливо.
So there's the GATS jar. And the other thing that's there's a small screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver. I always take the screwdriver with me too because inevitably with the older planes you always find one or two screws that are a little bit loose that maybe need a little tweaking. And the thing not to do is to put the screwdriver in your pocket like this, because if you fall down you're going to jam the screwdriver in your pocket. So always this way here like this, and then you kind of remember, you know, you touch it a little bit, you remember to have it in your pocket. Okay, like to start here, and I'm going to do, and also with the gas jar in my hand, but I'm going to do it. So I'm checking all the panels, I'm feeling everything, and looking at all the screw heads.
Okay.
And working my way down. And just touching. You know, you should get about 4 fingers here on the strut. That's about the right
4 fingers
height.
is okay.
Yeah, 4 fingers is good.
Yeah.
This is not enough. More is okay, but this would not be enough.
Okay.
Make sure there's, you know, the lock, the pins, you know, the tire. You should have a pressure gauge too to check the pressure on the tire. I know this one's good because we've been flying this plane almost every day, so we see the tires, you know. But this also is very important. This needs to be tight, okay? And same like this one, the shimmy dampener. It needs to be tight, not loose. And everything should be with the cotter keys in there. So those are some of the things you're looking for. It's not so much, how can I say, what's right, but maybe what's wrong. You know, what's missing. Did you already add the oil to this one, Lubo?
Yes, I will check it.
Okay, okay. I'll leave the stick for you. So same thing, just working like this, working around, okay? This way. Now normally I would get to here, this should be closed already, but because he's still doing it. Okay. And that's the other thing. He leaves it here so he knows where the dipstick is.
Yeah.
Ah, 6.5. So we're good.
It's okay, yeah?
Yeah. That's what we want in each engine is about 6.5. So we have the door open to keep it cool, but the same thing, checking, you know, the pins, the cotter pins, and make sure that they're bent over and not missing. Okay, make sure that this is secure. You don't want to grab onto this and pull it, but it should be secure through the window. Then just working your way down the leading edge. Okay, now there's going to be the fuel sumps under here. There's 2 here, and 1 on the other side underneath the wing, and then 1 underneath the engine. So I'll do the one here. You can see, and I'm looking for water and contaminants in the fuel. So here's the first one. I like to take about maybe a quarter to a half of a sample from each one and swirl it around. Oops, not supposed to do that. But you can see that it's clear.
Yeah, good.
So if that's clear, then I'm going to go ahead and do the next one because I know that it's okay. If I had contaminants in there, then what I would do is I would go ahead and dump it out and clean the jar out and then start over, take another sample. Now while I'm here and I have my head in the wheel well, I'm also looking around up in the wheel well to see, is everything okay here? Are there any loose screws? You know, does anything look wrong? An example of something is, you see how this likes to work its way over here? It's better if it would be like that. You can see it rubs a little bit, but it's still okay. You'll see on the back side here it rubs because it cycles like that. So it's something that's to keep an eye on. But also, you know, checking the gear. You don't want to mess too much with this here, this squat switch, okay? Because that's what's holding the plane up. That's what holds the gear. But I'm looking on the back side here, all the hoses, all the connections and fittings, you know, touching them. The struts back here, just checking for general, general connections. Looking at the back side of the shock strut, you know, we'll see it on the back side over there too. So now I'm working my way this way towards the cowl flap here. Oops, across the shoe. Okay. Towards the cowl flap, and I shake it a little bit to make sure it's secure. And then looking here for rivets and screws on the cowling. Sometimes I tap on it, you know, with my knuckle like this. You can hear it. If it's going to be loose, it's going to vibrate. You'll hear it. Okay? Okay. Now,
this is our ground support valve. You can shoot the ground support valve.
What you don't want to do, I mean, you want to check the prop, the leading edge, okay, for any like nicks or things like this. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to take your finger and run it on there, because sometimes there might be a little bit bigger one, you know, cracks. So what I usually do is I use a rag like this to run it across here, and I can feel where the rag catches.
You see this thing?
Here, he'll show you one here.
You know, this creates cavitation, okay?
Yeah.
This reduces the performance of the prop. you know, so should not be cracks inside and dents here.
And then also the spinner, you know, checking the tightness of the spinner all the way around, and then looking over the top like this here, and from the back side looking for the prop governor to make sure that down in here you don't see any oil. And also, if you can see, I don't know if you can shoot in there or not, but the prop bolts, to see the security of the prop bolts.
Yeah.
But you'll see, if you run your finger on that, you'll see how it is. There's one right there, and there's one on the other side that you're showing. So I like to do it this way. I can feel it with the rag, and sometimes if it's a deep one, it catches a little bit of the rag. And then you know. But at the annual, they always dress out the prop and take those things out of it. So again, coming around, looking inside the engine itself, make sure no birds made a nest in there or anything, or you know, and then just kind of doing the same sort of thing, checking the exhaust. Okay, so now I have to get rid of this. I'm listening. Second?
Did you check that?
What?
The oil?
Only this side. And the other yeah, I will.
And what we're going to do after that, we'll sit in the school
Okay.
and we'll go over the VMC demo procedure.
Okay.
You got to be sure, yes, but you got to be sure that these are lined up together, right?
I never like to walk away from an open cap either. Even though I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take another fuel sample, I put that one back in there. I've checked the jar to make sure there's nothing in it. There's a little bit in there, so I can clean that out. That's why I always carry the rag with me. And the best thing to use is this kind of a jar because you can save the fuel. Fuel is expensive, you can use it again. Unless it's really, really contaminated, then you have to take it to the sump. So here's the other sump on the engine. So you're going to take about maybe a quarter to a half a jar here, so and see how that comes out. And then there'll be another one on the wing here.
So no water,
no contaminants.
no contamination. It's blue. It's a proper.
It's good.
Octane. No, it's good. Oh, you gotta check.
So I was going to check this one here. There's here. And this is directly out of the tank itself. Give it a little swirl. And that one looks good too. Now we're checking the fuel quantity.
It's full.
And for this plane, it's 50 gallons a side. Well, I'm working our way around this way here. Stall indicator. You'll see here, there's a couple of them that are a little loose. I don't know. Sometimes they tighten up, sometimes they don't, but you can see that it's a little loose. So that's what you have your screwdriver for. You just put a little turn on it.
Oh.
Just to make sure. And you'll see if they're sticking up, if they need it or not. You're checking the pitot tube, nothing here. And there's a little drain usually in the bottom. You want to check to make sure that there's nothing in there. Checking your tightness of the lights. Coming by. Just feeling everything. You know, you fly the same plane all the time. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Looking underneath here, the bonding strap, the access panels. Like I said, by just tapping on them, you can tell right away if it's loose or not. Same thing here. You can just see bonding strap, tapping. Okay. Now I've gotten to here, checking for the cotter key. You can tell that there's enough air in the tire. But if it looked like it was a little low, you'd check the pressure. Now the brakes, these are the brake pad and brake caliper. There's a master cylinder inside. The movement you want, you should have about that much movement. And then by looking in here, you can actually see the pad thickness. And there is a gauge you can have to have the minimum thickness. I just know by looking at it that anything less than about like that much, the pad has to be replaced. So about that much. So, and if you want, you know, you can brush that off a little bit, but you're checking for the, you know, all the bolts are there, and there's no fluid anywhere, no big fluid under here, and then also, you know, checking here to make sure that this is good. And you see that's very old, so it's not hydraulic fluid coming now, because it would be red and you would see it. So that's good. And then just working your way here. Still, thickness is, or tightness is good, and the step, and the door is locked, and then looking for any broken rivets. The static port is not clogged, and you know that this is secure. Now, technically, you should have a ladder, and you should get up on the ladder and look to the horizontal and touch everything. You know, move the controls, look at the stabilizer, look at the trim tab. You can do a portion of it from the rudder here, but what you don't want to do, this is the trim tab on the rudder, you don't want to push on this.
Yeah.
Because you cause damage, but you can push here.
Only here,
Yeah, you can push here, and you can feel that the rudder is attached securely. Okay? Also, very important to look at this rivet section here. And on this side as well, these Cherry Max rivets, because that's the doubler underneath that holds the arm for the control of the trim tab on the rudder. And, you know, the cotter key. So, same thing, you're just going to look up and look at this one, and you're looking for the same things you're looking for up there. Now, when you get in the aircraft, like I said, if you don't do it with the ladder, you can get in, and the first thing before you start engines or anything is you check the controls to see how they feel, if they're binding and free and correct. Again, here, double checking that it's untied. That's why I like to coil the rope here, because I can know that it's untied. This one was an access panel at one time, but it's securely screwed shut now. Okay. Emergency locator transponder, emergency locator beacon antenna, static port on this side. Again, looking for broken rivets just by touching. Ground power plug secured, and the step, and then just looking underneath. Another antenna secured, and then we're going to do the same procedure here that we did on the other side, only we're going to work backwards. So you're going to start here. And you see about the same amount of travel on the shock here, and checking again for like safety wire and the cap and the brake. No puddle of brake fluid or hydraulic fluid anywhere, and then just working your way to the right. Very important too not to grab these trim tabs on the ailerons and bend them in any direction, because they're set for a certain degree of use. So you don't want to come up and, you know, bend them down or bend them up. So like I said, again, you're just doing the reverse of what you did on the other side. Now see, here's one that's sticking out a little bit. You see it?
Yeah.
And there's actually some, there's about 2, 3 missing.
Yeah.
So we have to ask Lubo if he has, which one was it? Here? Yeah. Have to ask Lubo if he has a couple of screws, because they should be, you know, they should be in there. That's not a grounding discrepancy, but, you know, these things have a tendency to loosen themselves up over time. See, there's a lot of them that are loose, especially when you have certain screws that are missing. Then it puts more stress on the other one. But you can tell as soon as you tap on it. See? Hear the difference?
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to check it. Now, I'm going to not check this first, because I'm going to get the fuel sump first, and then we'll go back to that. So the other one is under the wing right here. And this wing, we always usually get a little bit of water, a little bit of something.
Yeah.
So we take a full sample here first. And we'll see if we got a little something here today to demonstrate. Yeah, you can see a little bit. I don't know how it's going to show up on the video, but you can see it swirling around in there, kind of congealing together. Because the water is heavier than the avgas, you know, water weighs about 8 pounds per gallon, avgas weighs about 6 pounds per gallon. the water settles out to the bottom. Again, so the first thing I see, the tank is full. It's up to the full line, 50 gallons. Now this has a micro screen in it that has the measurements in the screen that are smaller than the water. So it allows the water to be retained in the cup and the fuel to pass back through. That way you're not dumping the water back into the tank. And you'll see, it doesn't look like much, but there's a little bit of water in the bottom of that can. So if you didn't do this every time you flew, you would end up with a lot of contamination in your tank, and possibly that could lead to engine stoppage. Certainly, if nothing else, carburetor icing could develop more easily with the water in there, because that water is being vaporized through the carburetor, and then you've got Bernoulli's principle resulting in carburetor ice, stops up the carburetor, stops the engine. So
Yes.
what we'll do, we'll take another sample from here, and once again. And usually within 2 or 3 samples, you can clear it out. But because I found the water there, so I'll take another full cup. And this time, still a little bit, not as much as last time, but you still see a little bubbles going around in there. And that's the way to get them to join together, is swirl the cup around like this, and then hold it, look at it, and then you'll see them come together. So we'll put it in here, and we'll see how much water is left in the bottom of it again. And if it's less than the last time, we'd probably be okay. And if not, then we'll take one more sample. But again, my rule of thumb is I never ever, it doesn't matter if I'm standing right here or not, I never walk away from an open fuel cap. I always put it back on, because there's going to be a time when you're going to forget, you're going to go fly, that fuel cap's going to go flying off, and fuel's going to get siphoned out. So, we got about the same. So we should probably do it like one more time. Now with that's just water, I don't care about dumping that on the ramp because it's only water. So I like to have a clean rag like this. I stick it in here. I clean out anything that's in there. And you'll see there are a little bit of debris here on the screen. So that kind of gets a little bit of the debris off. So let me take one more sample from there.
How about now?
Yes, it's looking better now. A couple of bubbles, but less than before. And this is normal for this plane, you know. If it flies every day, then you don't have as much as that. But it's been here for a couple of days. It hasn't flown now, so it's normal. And you get that. The one thing to help avoid that is to keep the tanks full, especially overnight. So if you're finished flying for the day, this is why it's good to fill up the fuel tank, because it doesn't allow the condensation to build up in the tank overnight. Because mostly that's where you're getting it from, is the condensation in the tank. So we'll take a fuel sample from here, from this engine. And of course, you know, it's running down underneath. This can't be helped. And so while I'm here, I can check the cowl flaps, and I can check the exhaust for tightness. And also, you know, I can look here while I'm holding this. I can look here and feel these things. And you'll see that, you know, this one is good. So I'll go ahead and say this is good. I'm not going to dump it in there yet. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take the other fuel samples, the two from under the wings here, right at the wing root. This one is good.
Okay.
And now I do the other one. This way I'm only making one trip back to the fuel tank. And you know, you fly the same plane. If you fly the same plane all the time, you know which sump is going to give you the trouble. So you know you have another little procedure which one you're going to do more than the other one. But you can see everything there is good. Nice and clear, no contaminants, is looking good. Again, making sure that it's nice and secure. And the tab should be all the way down, nice and flush.
Yeah.
So that's good. So now I'm going to continue on. We already did this, but what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the oil because, you know, he added oil. So we're looking for, it says 8 quarts. If we were going to go on a long cross country, you would put 8 quarts. But for local flight, training flight, you need somewhere between 6 and 7 quarts. Okay. Because if you put 8 quarts, it's going to put 1 quart overboard right away. So there's the 8 right there. Of course, I have sweat in my eyes, so it's difficult to see. But there's 6, and you see we have right about 6, maybe 6 1/4, 6 1/2. So this is good.
For this flight, it's okay, yeah?
Yeah, for this flight, that's good. And we'll get about 2 hours, I guess, maybe 2.5 hours, and then we'll have to put another. We put a 1/2 quart on each side to bring it up to 6 1/2. So again, on the propeller, the same thing. I don't like to use my fingers. Some guys do. But like I said, if you feel this, you feel that it's rough a little bit. And you have a possibility you can cut your finger. So the best thing to do is you go like this, and if it catches a big part of the rag, you know, it catches the rag and it's like, oh, now you know. Now that's only on the leading edge side. On the back side, you shouldn't have anything unless you hit a stone or something, because this is the descending, you know, side. On this propeller, this is the rotation is this way. On the other one, the rotation is the opposite way. So again, here for the spinner. Now this oil that's right here, that's on here, this is because he laid the dipstick across here. This is not from the prop governor. This is engine oil. So, but you want to wipe it off, just so you know you're not confused later. You look inside again, same thing. No bird's nest, and then everything looks secure in there. Coming around with the propeller. It needs to be dressed. I mean, it's time for the annual, so it's time for the propeller to be dressed and painted. And they do that every annual. Again, and so looking in here, you know, you can reach in and feel is everything okay. As long as the engine's cool, you can reach in. If it's hot, you don't want to be sticking your hand in there. But then on the back side here, I can look in and see, and you can come over here, you can look in and see it's safety wired. Okay, see the safety wire in there? Right about in there, there's a safety wire. And the propeller bolts to the spinner, the bulkhead to the spinner, they look secure. A lot of times the mechanics will put torque seal on there. It's a little type of paint, and they'll put it on there so you can tell if it's moved or not. And then you just look in here at the prop governor, make sure you don't see any oil. And the easiest way to see the prop governor is usually from the back side here and from the back side here, to make sure you don't see any oil or anything like that, any kind of contamination. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, then the last place is looking is here into the wing root and the door, and then the same thing on this side. And what I need to look at here, because I only took the fuel sample, was here. I need to come back and check the hoses here. It's okay. The brake, the grease fitting's okay. You know, the caliper, you don't want any big scores in it. And then the same thing in here. It goes up, it's nice and secured. The gear lines. And so things look good over here too.
Okay.
The way you started, coming around to the nose. Okay. And the last place I want to look is this side here. Same thing. And this is the shimmy dampener. So checking the cotter pins here and here to make sure it's secured to it. And again, you know, you can check 4 fingers. And I also like to wipe off any kind of hydraulic fluid that might be on there, any sort of sticky material, just because it keeps it cleaner. I have my little quirks of, and we all do, the pilots, we all get a little quirk of the way you do things. So let me put this thing back in the plane, and then we're going to go inside to the school.
Okay.
So, but the pre-flight on this plane is complete. The pre-flight on this plane is complete. It's ready to go.
Yes.
Now again, you can see I laid this here, was the pitot tube cover. I laid it right on the seat right there. So now that I'm back here, I know, and it's going to go in the door pocket right here, and the reason for that is you're going to check to make sure the emergency gear extension handle is here, and you put the pitot tube cover right in here, and the control lock is here. So everything is right there. Now I'm going to leave the doors to the plane open so it cools off a bit, and I'm going to leave the seatbelt secured around there because of any breeze or any other plane that may go by. Important issue here, when you get off, usually there's a sticker or something here that says no step.
Yeah.
You want to step from here to here because this is actually the flaps. You don't want to step on it, it'll cause damage. Same thing on the other side. Headset and
Pre-flight we are finished, yeah? Pre-flight check we are
it's
finished.
finished.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.